is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
Affordable low-cost housing, that's the buzzword in Indian real estate today, with the NDA government's first union budget since coming to power clearly spelling it out, that affordable low-cost housing for all by 2022 is going to be their big agenda, their big priority. Are we on track to achieve this? Is there enough government and industry support to ensure a house for every Indian over the next 8 years? Let's decode the myths from the reality with our interesting panel of guests today. I'm joined by Rajesh Krishnan, Managing Director and CEO of Brick Eagle Group. This is a financial services platform for affordable housing projects. We're also joined by Anuj Puri, Chairman and Managing Country Head of one of India's leading property consultancies, JLL India, and architect Hafeez Contractor, a well-known face for his many landmark projects in the residential and commercial space. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's first establish the problem through some numbers. The UN says that India is home to the world's, the largest number of poor in the world. The government says the housing shortage in urban areas is about 19 million. Developers are a little skeptical that if you're targeting 2022, the housing shortage is going to get worse by then, probably 40 million. Okay, so budget, lots of budget, slew of measures announced. Are those enough? Is housing for all by 2022 possible? Rajesh.
Well, again, well put. Just to understand the magnitude of the problem, I suspect we need about 30 million homes, conservatively speaking, to house every Indian, which is about 3 lakh acres of lands, right? Which I suspect needs about $500 billion of investments, right? And which is about 15 billion square feet of construction, right? So I think we are talking about doing something which has never been done before in like 100 folds more than anything that's been achieved in India so far. So is it possible? I think we have a decent shot at it, right? Have we started moving in that direction? I suspect not.
Anuj, he is hopeful. We have a decent shot at it. The recent budget announcement, is there enough to feel confident about? What else remains?
One big thing that I did not see getting covered, and I'm not so sure whether it was even required to be in the budget, but one big thing which is creating that delay and will be a problem is the approval process.
Right. No single window clearance.
No single window clearance. And today if you were to ask me what is the biggest challenge, it is not as much liquidity. Liquidity is a challenge, but not the biggest challenge. Certainly it's not demand. You gave those figures, Rajesh, reinforced those figures. It is not the demand. Ability to construct, there could be a challenge, but I'm sure there are contracting firms, there are international firms who can come in. There is labor. I'm sure there is a problem, but perhaps not to the magnitude what it needs to be. The problem really lies on the approval process. Unless the government looks into it much more closely and says how we are going to be able to simplify the approval process, this is not going to happen. Even if you were to buy a land today, you're not able to really start construction in 24 to 36 months. Then it takes about 36 months to complete the construction. You're already in 2022 by the time you start doing it today. So I think really at a central government level, if they have to push this agenda, and this agenda has been on the manifesto of this government, and if they have to push it, they will genuinely need to go back to the state governments and say, we're either going to stop your funding or you better get that act together.
Yeah.
One has to look at it from a different perspective.
And what is that?
Look at housing as an infrastructure. Today, you're looking at roads. You want to build roads. Do you buy land? Do you buy land? No, you don't buy land. You just align the road and you make the road. What about housing? What my friend just said, okay, 19 million, 30 million, by the time 2050, you'll go to what number? How many more people are going to come to the city? 9 900 million people are going to come to the city in the next 25 to 30 years. What is going to happen if you just go about like that? He's talking about one window. What window you're talking about? No window. For a housing, this is the kind of plan, and for a low-cost housing, it should be, you should be getting, there should be a fixed plan. And it should be got approval, tomorrow. When I make a slum, do I take your approval? If you're not able to control the slum approval, why the hell are you controlling the other approvals? Yeah. The whole thing is possible. More than, when we are talking about affordable housing, it is what price? What price? When everybody is talking about affordable, they are talking about 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs. That is not affordable. What is affordable is 3 and 4 lakhs. And that is what is necessary. And it is doable. It is doable provided you all look at it from a different perspective.
So stronger political will to actually act on affordable housing. Rajesh, but one big challenge is making land available. How do developers navigate around that challenge?
Look at a city like Bombay. I suspect about 500,000 people are coming into the city. The city is anyway growing at the rate of about 10,000 acres every year. I suspect Bombay needs good, well-planned satellite townships, right, which are self-contained, where people can live and work, right? So it's not a bad idea to pick up these lands in the outskirts and build self-sustained townships anyway. But if I guess you're thinking about lands in the middle of Bombay, right, for instance, right? I suspect there's a lot of land inside Bombay too. Look at all the defunct mills, the salt pans, port trust lands. I mean, there are enough lands. The question is, can you actually make it accessible for affordable housing? Right.
Anuj, is FDI going to be a big game changer? This new provision where if you commit 30% of your project to affordable housing, certain restrictions get removed. So do you now see more corporates getting into affordable housing? Is this going to be the next big opportunity for the whole sector?
I genuinely think FDI is a little bit reluctant to get into development. The story hasn't been really good on the foreign equity that has come into India and participated in development. Not many have really been able to make money in that. And those who made money also because of the way the Indian rupee devalued, really in dollar terms didn't make money. So whilst I know that the private equity liberalization has come in from 50,000 square meters to 20,000 square meters, and there have been other benefits that have been given that will incentivize. But I can tell you, India is not a hot story for foreign private equity funds to come in and play on the development play. What it is very hot is buying completed assets, income yielding assets. We've seen the Blackstones of the world do that. That part of the story is pretty much intact. Affordable will come in, but I think it is going to take a little bit more time, because the first phase of foreign equity investors that came in did not have the best of the time. And I'll tell you why, because it goes back to the question that you raised. It was largely because of land. Yeah. Either the land was into some problems that it got in, or the approvals did not come in time, by which time the life of the fund was coming to an end, or the partner took a lot more longer to develop that land and build that land, and that relationship didn't go well. So they haven't had the best of the experiences. And just continuing with that, land is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. Can we ask the government to give us land for affordable housing? I doubt it. They should do that. I'm not saying that it is not going to happen.
But if you're looking at, see, this private equity, and you involve a developer with where he's going to buy a land, that kind of an housing that will come will not be the EWS and the LIG. It will be, yes, that kind of a housing also is required, but it is going to be 1 or 2 layers lower than the affluent housing. What you really require, see, if you look at the housing shortage, 18 million, 30 million, 40 million, whatever we are all saying, and it's going to go to so many million, all of that, 80% is in the EWS. It's an absolute pyramid. It's here. And that, what is the affordability? You're talking about a driver, you're talking about a peon, you're talking about a waiter. Okay, he cannot put in so many lakhs and he cannot pay EMIs and other things, okay? And the government has to get up from their slumber and say that this is infrastructure. This kind of a housing is infrastructure. We are going to give land.
I agree with Anuj that FDI is not jumping at coming into India, because of the experiences they've had. However, if you look at social impact investors, which is another segment of investors altogether, I suspect India is still shining, right? Because I mean, India houses most of the world's poor, right? And from a social impact perspective, people are looking at India very seriously. Right. And this includes foundations, development finance institutions, pension funds in Europe, who all have allocation for social impact. So in the context of housing at 5 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees, I suspect we can find money from these investors, right? And in this context, it's very important what the government has done, right? Reducing the barriers on FDI. Because when people give social impact money, a lot of these foundations are happy to give $1 or $2 million. They don't want to give $10 million, right? So the fact that they've reduced entry barriers on FDI is an important thing, right? So essentially we talked about capital, then land, right? So the fact that we are inefficient is a good thing in this context. What I mean by that is this, right? There are a lot of lands which are locked up for various reasons, right? For instance, in the heart of city, let's say Koperkarne, we have MIDC lands, which cannot be used for residential, right? And those lands are actually mispriced, right? There are a lot of lands which are zoned differently, which are not available for residential use, and at these price points, it's not viable for commercial development, right? So I'm saying, if we can go after these lands, pick up mispriced lands, and make it available for social housing.
Okay, so on that note, we need to take a small break. We spoke about whether affordable housing for all by 2022 is doable or not. We'll come back and chalk out the solutions of the broad challenges that stand before affordable housing.